Congress has been very, very, very fortunate to have had Paula Harris on our board of directors for the last 4 years. She's brought a vibrancy and a depth of balance to the board decisions, and dare I say, a feminine touch, a little bit of balance. She's been real special. Part of this is because, you know, Paula is one of the few researchers that actually still truly does crisscross the world in search of some of these truths. She does. She's basically everywhere all the time. And she brings this unique perspective and with joy and love shares it with all of us and all the latest gossip from around the world too. Oh yeah, go out drinking with her. She's going to share with us today her thoughts, her ideas about where ufology has been, where it's journeyed in the last 20 years, where it is today. Okay, she's going to set that stage, and then she's going to launch into what she thinks may possibly be the future of ufology. Ladies and gentlemen, Paula Harris.
Good morning, everybody. This is a joyous occasion, and it's a little bit bittersweet, but I'm one of those researchers that recognizes the contributions of others. And yes, Nikki is like her mother. She's in the back. I want to take a few minutes to do some thank yous and before I do my presentation, because I think it's so important to say thank you to people. So I would like to start my presentation with some memories. I want to say thank you so much to Bob Brown, and he's saying thank you to J.J. Hurtak, as you see here. Terry's Girls. I want to say thank you so much to Terry's Girls, and of course I knew Terry. They lived in Colorado, so I was with Terry towards that last year. Her passion for this Congress was absolutely incredible. It was in her DNA. And these girls in this family have done so much, and Bob has done an amazing job bringing this forward. It's family. It's family. We're all family. So that picture of Nikki I absolutely love. I told Nikki I was going to do it. And Bob's emceeing has been absolutely wonderful. He's one person that knows the material and is excited about it and so forth. And so I wanted to say thank you. I want to say thank you also to Paul Davids and the people that were part of the film festival. And this will all continue probably more in a grandiose way. So it's not the ending of something, it's the beginning of something new. But I want to thank also all the people, and you see them there on the board of directors: Wendell Stevens, Hak Tan, Don Ware, Ross Hemsworth, amazing person, and of course the yellow-hatted Paul Davids. So I needed to do this. We need to say thank you to these people too. These people are the gear that runs the machine. And we must remember that the machine needs them. It's a well-oiled machine. So we need to say thank you. I'm not going to name all of these guys. There's too many of them. But you'll see them tonight. And I really want to start my presentation and say, we're looking at the future. The future is bright. We're looking at a future vision. That's why I called this presentation I See You. For you people that have seen the film Avatar, which is the most popular film, the most viewed film on the planet right now, you know those words are very important. And in a way, I think I interpret them as I love you. So wouldn't that be cool to have that be that way? But I want to start with the past because, as most of you know, I started as a nuts and bolts ufologist with Dr. J. Allen Hynek back in 1980. And I have gone along the waves of change and the waves of transformation and come to the idea of Dr. John Mack. That is a picture of Dr. Mack, and that hasn't been altered. That was taken in Vermont. Just before he died, John Mack came to my apartment in Rome because we had invited him to speak to a group of young, very young people in Florence, and he spoke about a new world view. And I want to use that theme because I think that we need to develop a new world view, a new paradigm, if you will. And so I have called it this. Now, for me, I have based my growth from ufology to a subject matter called exopolitics. And you've heard a little bit from brilliant Richard Dolan yesterday on this. The reason why is because my research is based on a letter, an MJ-12 document, and it's in my new book, that Einstein and Oppenheimer wanted to send to President Truman. That letter said, in essence, and you know they were involved with the Manhattan Project, the atom bomb testing. It said, we have a lot of visitations, we have a lot of sightings, we have kind of curious invasion over White Sands ever since we did this kind of testing, and we need to deal with it. We need to deal with it. And the name of this document is called Relationships with Inhabitants of Celestial Bodies. It does not say relationship with the craft. It does not say the new technology. It says relationships with the inhabitants of celestial bodies, which is a whole 7 pages on how do you deal with what's inside the craft. When was this done? 1947 in June, before Roswell. So the basis of my interest in exopolitics says this, in essence. We have more than enough sightings. We have more than enough evidence. What are we going to do about it on planet Earth? Because it will change life as we know it. So that is why I have written 2 books on exopolitics, and I do want to work with the exopolitical situation. But as anything, we have different people in the movement, and we have different intentions for exopolitics. And I want to state mine because I noticed that some of my colleagues don't even mention that I'm a part of the exopolitical movement. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman or I'm just out there or whatever it is. I'm the only person that's written 2 books on this. But my involvement in exopolitics is this, that I will go around the world gathering the testimony, the word-for-word testimony of major top players, and that includes the ex-Minister of Defense, Paul Hellyer, a lot of military people, astronauts, really credible people, pilots, and so forth, and put them together in a book form so that our future generation can read first-hand resources. There is nothing that I write that comes from internet, telephone, hearsay, gossip, or anything else. Everything I do is firsthand. Now, do I have the money to do this? No. Where does this come from? My passion of saving every cent I have to do this kind of work and be there, to fly to NASA, to speak to the people, to get them at conferences. Just here alone, I have 4 spectacular interviews with gentlemen that were in the military that were so kind to give me their testimony. So I had to do this. And guess what? That caricature was done by Paul Davids. He's an incredible artist. I don't know if you know that he does watercolors, and he did that of me while we were sitting at dinner one time. Now, Dr. John Mack's legacy, he wanted to establish a new world view, the old nuts and bolts ufology to the new scientific paradigm. I would like you to play Veritas if you can. I want to introduce you to one of these people that is walking along this same road, but I want to show you what I believe exopolitics to be. If we can play the Veritas clip.
I think it's time to open the books on questions that have remained in the dark, on the question of government investigations of UFOs. It's time to find out what the truth really is that's out there. We ought to do it really because it's right. We ought to do it because the American people, quite frankly, can handle the truth. And we ought to do it because it's the law.
If the United States Air Force did recover alien bodies, they didn't tell me about it either. And I want to know. I want to know. I want to know.
Look, I've been in government. I've been in the cabinet. I've been in the Congress. I've always felt the government doesn't tell the truth as much as it should on a lot of issues. You know, we have some national security, privacy issues. I think we should be more open. I've always felt that. And I did feel that. This was the Roswell aliens case. He was very polite. He didn't say that. But you know, yeah, because I remember asking. I had my constituents ask me. And I was the congressman. I said, well, Department of Defense, Los Alamos Labs, what is this? What is the data you have? Oh, it's classified. Oh, that ticked me off.
That's good. How are you? Good to see you, sir. If you're elected president, will you find and trust the people enough to tell them about UFOs, what the story is? Half the public believes that they are real. Would you finally tell us what the hell's going on?
Sure, I will. Since the statement made by George Bush last July, there's been a vicious rumor circulating in the UFO community that you've been read into the UFO program. My question to you is, in any of your government jobs, have you ever been briefed on the subject of UFOs? And if you have, when was it? What were you told?
Well, if I had been briefed on that, I'm sure it was probably classified and I couldn't talk about it.
The reason for the denial was, number one, they didn't know if these were hostile and could we protect ourselves from them. Didn't want the Soviets to know, so they devised to lie about it and cover it up.
Decades ago, visitors from other planets warned us about where we were headed and offered to help. But instead, we, or at least some of us, interpreted their visits as a threat and decided to shoot first and ask questions after.
50% of all Americans believe the extraterrestrial explanation accounts for these sightings. Up to as many as 90% of Americans believe the government is outright lying. The polls are unambiguous. Year after year, the same thing. In fact, if you could talk anonymously to people, even in Congress, probably 50% of members of Congress already convinced that the extraterrestrial presence explains this phenomena. Disclosure is at hand. It is very close, and the American people need to prepare themselves very soon for an announcement from our government that there is, in fact, an extraterrestrial presence engaging this planet and the human race.
The way to make government responsible is to hold it accountable. And the way to make government accountable is to make it transparent so that the American people can know exactly what decisions are being made, how they're being made, and whether their interests are being well served. The directives I am giving my administration today on how to interpret the Freedom of Information Act will do just that. For a long time now, there's been too much secrecy in this city. The old rules said that if there was a defensible argument for not disclosing something to the American people, then it should not be disclosed. That era is now over. Starting today, every agency and department should know that this administration stands on the side not of those who seek to withhold information, but those who seek to make it known.
Now, I noticed when I was showing this, the reaction to Obama's testimony here. You know, I never for 1 minute believed that Obama was going to disclose anything, or any president was going to disclose anything. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that when those men, however ideal, get into office, they are not the ones that make the decisions. But I will say he was an idealist, because he would have never said that if in his heart he didn't believe he could do that. Took probably 2 days in the White House to realize he couldn't do it, and couldn't do a lot of other things he wanted to do. So what you're looking at is a kind of blockage that's going to be in governments, especially in the United States government, about this situation, a blockage. And then the fact that it's very complex. The UFO matter, the secrecy as Richard Dolan showed yesterday, is extremely complex. It is not just standing in front of the American people and saying, yes, there's UFOs. It's an economic situation, it's an institutional situation, it's a psychological situation. But guess what? We can't back away from it because it's going to happen. These, whatever they are, that are over our skies are not going away. And more, when the Earth undergoes probably more Earth changes and more political situations, we're going to have more and more sightings. And you can either close your eyes to it, or you can start looking at it in a study, in an academic, scholarly, investigative study, and try to deal with it in all the disciplines, whether it be philosophy, psychology, or science. And I don't want to go to the scientific thing because we're using our old antiquated science to describe a new reality, and we need to also modify the science, which is starting to happen. Now, these are things that John Mack talked to me about in my living room in Rome. He was absolutely amazing. He said, I will conclude by speaking about the implications of a new worldview, because we got to change our minds about things. You know, he said, we see all around us all types of forces that are supporting the emergence of this way of thinking. People around the world are opening up to new ways of thinking. Groups of young people here in Florence are committed to the new world, new emerging paradigm. How would this planet be different if the emerging worldview became the dominant worldview? We would be connected to all living things, not just those around us, but with all nature and spirit, which would make it impossible for us to treat nature in an exploitive way. Does that remind you of Avatar? For example, we would be able to identify with other peoples, other religions, and all animals, so we would not treat them just as products to consume. With this deeper reality, we could appreciate that we are connected to the divine, the creative principle, which would be more fulfilling than the material focus that has been so dominant today. So it would be like global. It would be global awakening of the heart instead of global exploitation. Work that has that connotation today. I might add, the opening of the heart has been a fundamental aspect of the alien encounter experience. I learned this from my dealings with experiencers. Sometimes experiencers get information from these beings that we are not just a menace to the earth, but we are a menace to the galaxy. In conclusion, as this emerging paradigm, this emerging worldview takes hold, we might become more responsible citizens of a galaxy instead of becoming the imminent menace we appear to be. And this is the real intention of my research. Because to have it be, and I'm going to go backwards here, to have it be that we could change the paradigm, change the worldview, and encompass a more holistic way of living. And Dr. John Mack used to call it a scientific materialism we were living in, is maybe a salvation point for this species. Now, there are things happening you should know about. There are a lot of us out there, but this man has done a great deal. He was here last year. The Denver ballot initiative for the Extraterrestrial Commission, the official date of the election is August 10th, 2010. Can the people do something? Absolutely. Jeff Peckman has put his heart, soul, energy on this to start this in Denver. He has gotten all the signatures. It is a done deal. It is a done deal, except it will be on the ballot. And part of me is going, oh, they're never going to pass it, but I shouldn't think like that. Because if they do pass it, we have turned the corner in this paradigm on this whole entire extraterrestrial question. At least it would be studied seriously. But I want you to look at internet at the work of Jeff Peckman. It is so important. And this will happen in August. So it is the latest news. I need to thank this man. You know, it's amazing because I hear about him only about his personal views, which each and every one of us has the right to have and not be crucified for. But his contribution, because I was in Italy at the time and did a lot of the filming of the Italian military, plus I brought him to Monsignor Corrado Balducci's apartment. His contribution to all of this is that he put his money where his mouth is and his energy where his mouth was, and he walked his talk, and he did the Disclosure Project in 2001, and that we must never forget, apart from what people have interpreted. The thing is this, that you don't ever hear me name people that I don't agree with. You don't hear me ever. I may talk about some philosophy that I'm not in agreement with. But I think we need to stay away from taking sides in infighting, because it's going to make it longer. And I have to honestly say that having known him during the Disclosure Project times, if it wasn't for him, it wouldn't have ever happened. So I want to thank him also. And as far as the CSETI protocols, at least there's meditation involved. If you go to a CSETI training, at least there is some kind of understanding about involved, and at least we're not shooting them down. So one of the things that I do recommend in your own way, if you want to do a contact protocol, that it can be done. But it's the intent. It's the intent with which you do it. So I thank Dr. Stephen Greer. Whistleblowers. This is the past. Gary McKinnon, and you can talk to Ross Hemsworth about this, went online to find out the truth about UFOs and gets a list of military astronauts, deep space platforms. This is material I got back in 1999 from several of my whistleblower testimonies that there were deep space platforms. I have just interviewed Frank Ferguson, whose father worked on a deep space platform in 1950. If you want to wrap your mind around how long the secrecy has been going on, it's back in the 50s and the 40s. You can imagine where we are today. But we need to say thank you to the whistleblowers. All the whistleblowers, those people who have had courage enough and risked their lives, and it isn't easy. It isn't easy. I have talked to a lot of these people. And, you know, starting with Alan Hynek, you'll see him there, Robert Dean. It is not easy. It takes a stress not only on your having to talk about it, it takes a stress on your family life. And your family life, and you're having to live a normal life. Anybody that's had any kind of contact or worked in secret black projects, their life is completely altered. So we need to say thank you to these people. You may recognize here Charles Hall. I did that story. That was the Charles Hall, Tall Whites in the Indian Springs facility. Now Charles Hall is working on a Air Force base right now. He has given me permission to do 10 questions and 10 answers on my website. So please go to my website. There's an update on the Charles Hall case. Many of you are fascinated with the Tall Whites. I'm not going to go into details, but when we have hosting of cosmic cultures on the Indian Springs facility with their children, that really makes my ears perk up, especially with the children idea. Monsignor Corrado Balducci, very close friend of mine. A lot of these people are no longer with us, and it makes me very sad, and I feel a huge weight continuing this because of their commitment, and they cannot be forgotten. Colonel Philip Corso. In the center is Dr. Michael Wolff. In a couple of years, I will be doing something on that. And of course, Edgar Mitchell and Clifford Stone. When I worked with Hynek, he's trying to make light of some of this, and he said, Paula, he said, you have to laugh, laugh, study, study. And of course, I have my background in teaching. And I believe in study. I think more people should be reading books instead of getting their material off internet. What happened to reading the books? As a teacher, I'm really upset, because if the student is doing the research on internet and comes in with a research paper that's all internet, they certainly didn't go to any first-hand sources, did they? So they're not getting the whole story. I really encourage the reading of books, and that's why my interviews are in a book, because someday I dream through the International Metaphysical University, where I'm going to teach online classes, that they can use these books and the first-hand testimonies of these people to write a thesis paper, a 50-page, 100-page thesis of your own. I don't know if you noticed, but I never come to any conclusions. I just present the information. And that is what I learned from Alan Hynek, and you can see very young Paula Harris here, and I learned from his inspiration. I knew from the beginning that it was real. I'm working with an astronomer. There's Jacques Vallée. These people should be heralded also. They're part of the whistleblowers. You have Glenn Dennis, the mortician at Roswell, who talked about the small children's coffins. He's still alive. We have Clifford Stone, we have Don Schmidt, and we have Walter Hall. He, in his testimony, Hall, talked about seeing the bodies at the hangar. But do you realize we are still in the dark ages, since the Air Force is still saying it's a mogul balloon with test dummies? That's the official, and we've got these testimonies. Exopolitics should be a scholarly study, and I hope someday that the legacy we all have goes into a university class and nobody is laughing, has no ridicule factor, and it becomes a class that people study because they're curious. It is not a cult, it is not a religion, it is not a belief system, it is factual. It is what John Podesta said at the beginning, it is the law, and we need to know what happened. So Colonel Philip Corso, I don't have time to go into it, the day after Roswell. Now I'm going to add, the very miraculous thing has happened with Open Minds, who's going to open an incredible door to the future. Open Minds has actually acquired this book that everybody asked me about, which is The Dawning of a New Age, and it will be online and you can read it. It is Colonel Corso's original notes, and you will get the truth finally, because we printed them in Italy and the book has never been released here. Open Minds, through Maurizio Baiada, through John Rayo, Angela Rayo, that group, Antonio Huneos and Alejandro, the group that is going to do their disclosure with this, it's going to be amazing. You can now read that book. It will be online shortly. Colonel Corso, God bless you. I know that you also have had a lot of courage in this aspect. Now, Paul Hellyer, ex-Minister of Defense, who is not just anybody. Anybody that says anything about Paul Hellyer, I really wonder what their motivation is. He just wrote a book that is coming out in March called The Light at the End of the Tunnel, A Survival Manual for Human Species. And that book will be released, and I will fly for a second time to Canada to do an interview with him, because the first interview that's all over internet is the first interview that was done with him in his office in Toronto when he said UFOs are as real as airplanes. This is an ex-Minister of Defense. So I'm on my way back to fly to Canada on my own steam. Nobody's paying for this, because this is all done with, you know, our own steam. And to get his second testimony, and he's also someone we should say thank you to. Now, there's Milton Torres. The cover of the new Open Minds magazine has my story, or my interview of him, a very brave man who has talked about the shooting down of a UFO. Do we shoot at them? Yes, we do. Do we succeed? Sometimes. In the 1950s, he was stationed in England, and thanks to the documents that came out of the Ministry of Defense release, I don't think they knew what they were doing, because they've backtracked. They're doing damage control, I think. But anyway, thanks to those documents, Milton Torres was able to talk about a situation where he was ordered to shoot at a UFO. And his story is amazing. It's on the first issue of Open Minds. And there is Kirkland, Bill Kirkland, who was here last year, present when Eisenhower, during the Eisenhower landing at Holloman. And he was there. So we're talking firsthand interview. This is just some of the people that I want to acknowledge. I had to put a little orb there because it was in the picture. I'm not going to throw away every single new development or new kind of mystery that appears, because I heard somebody say, well, is the ufology only scientific? No. It's metaphysical, paranormal, and all of it. And when you study, you have to study all of it. Otherwise, you don't see the entire picture. That means all the paranormal things that some scientists don't want to look at. So I don't know, whatever that was. But anyway, there's Dr. Edgar Mitchell. Thank you to the contactees, all of you out there. I haven't got time, and I've really specialized in the military and the astronauts and the pilots and so forth, but I have a few interviews and a few stories on contactees. Last year, Antonio Urzi was here and showed you his film footage, and Jaime Maussan will show you some more. This contactee in particular is always videotaping these craft during the day, and this is February 7th, 2010. The last one was last Friday, which I gave Jaime the DVD of. And I'm telling you that I really will predict we are going to be having more sightings with more Earth changes that are happening. Here's Antonio Urzi. You might remember him. His film footage is amazing. Go on my site, plus I have a link to his site, and these are daylight images. And, you know, I have this theory that whoever's watching is watching for a reason, and it's a lot around major earthly events. Lisa and Stan Romanek, if you think that's easy to live with, I've known them for at least 9 years. I asked Stan, did you tell them about the 2 bullets that came into your house when they tried to shoot you? You think that's easy when you have kids? You know, this is not fun. It is not fame and fortune. It is not movie stars. This is a problem. It is something that we need to look at seriously. They've learned to live with it, but it is something that takes a tremendous amount of courage. I get nervous just doing the 17-page interview I did with him. I brought somebody with me because I was a nervous wreck going into that house where all that paranormal stuff happens. And on my website is a 17-page interview with Stan Romanek. All right, well, a lot of things happen. And people have been asking me all week about this. They said, Paula, you're one of the first people that have done stories about human-type aliens. And I said yes, because they're Italian cases. And for some reason, there is a belief that the little gray is the only type of alien, and certainly the only one commercialized in the United States of America. So I am presenting the Clarion pictures again, Maurizio Cavallo, pictures from the Maurizio Cavallo case. There is, well, this one is on internet. On the left is the Valerian, supposedly alien person, but I wanted to, I don't know about that. I just put it there because of human-type aliens, but that is a Clarion little girl. That comes from a series of about 50 Polaroids that Maurizio Cavallo took on one of the Clarion ships as he would go and be invited aboard, but he was really an abductee. They told him to hang on to these pictures for 10 years to see if they could trust him. And then he talked about releasing them. You wanted to see the faces? The faces, well, the one on the left is one of the beings. The one on the right, he says, is a hybrid gray. He has also faces that look like beautiful, beautiful women like Grace Kelly, features, very perfect features. Now, one of the things I really want to warn people is not to label these people. These people come from all different places. They're not all Pleiadian because they're blonde. They're not all reptilian, and they're not all grays. And we've already done this separation and judgmental kinds of categorizing without knowing the whole picture. Until we're talking to them and they're sitting here, I can't tell you if they're bad, good, what their intentions are, or anything. For me, they are just alien, period. There is no anything around it, and all the supposition that goes with it doesn't help us very much, because people are getting nervous, scared, already deciding what's happening. Can you imagine if an alien came to this earth and just landed in China and thought that was all that humans were, or in Africa, and that's all the humans were, or in different countries, and saw our behavior pattern and completely categorized us as hostile, not very sensitive, fighting among each other, not having any values, which isn't true. So I really try to warn people, gather the information the contactees give us, but don't make any black and white decisions yet. This idea that Stephen doesn't want to go to the negative, you know, that's his prerogative. I don't want to go to either positive or negative. I think it's benign. It's neither one. It's just alien. So, but I will collect the information. That's my job. Here's the craft, the light craft, and these are films, movies. I can't show them to you. This book came out absolutely mind-boggling. If you're really doing real research and you can read this, it's very long. Mass Contacts has been translated into English. It is about a case in Pescara, and that is an alien on the cover. Stefano Brescia is an engineer. There is an alien that's 10 foot tall as part of this experiment that was done in 1956. Now, think of what you were doing in 1956. I was a kid, and this is going on, and it's documented. Now I have interviewed 2 people involved in the amicizia or friendship case. What does this all mean for the planet? Well, crabwood for me, and the French Khmer people that are here, the French, I don't know, you need to go to their booth because these people in France are doing incredible work, and they have documented even more than we have in the United States. They have on this, Denis has this on his cover because this has a binary message. It says that we need to beware of the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. Much pain, but still time. There is good out there. The thing that scares me is conduit closing, which means we are not going to talk to you anymore. You're not getting it. That really worries me. However, we need to look at every single aspect of this. I want to thank, with all my heart and soul, without getting emotional, my boss for 20 years in Italy, Maurizio Baiata. He is a consummate ufologist. He sent me out all over the world to do things I didn't even want to do for this magazine. We went through 4 different titles, word-for-word interviews plus information that was given to the Italian people on a magazine that was on the newsstands like People magazine. You didn't need to get only a subscription. The work that we did in those years is amazing, and you're ever so lucky to have him in the United States with Open Minds. Open Minds, you need to stop by their stands because Open Minds is just what it says it is. It is the opening of our minds, the opening of the paradigm. The magazine here will give you the information because they have a lot of contributors that are working with this magazine that will give you first-hand information and explanation. And one thing more, they want to reach an audience that is not like preaching to the choir, because here you all understand, and I don't have to explain too much, but wouldn't it be wonderful to reach an audience that is not yet touched, an audience perhaps of young people? So I wish them, and I know this will be an incredible transition with Open Minds next year, and finally, you know, because I'm a journalist, a magazine. Now, George Nuri, Coast to Coast, thank you. I dedicated my book to him, all the above, because he always asks me, Paula, is it paranormal? Is it, interplanetary? Is it, what is it? Interdimensional? Yes, it's interdimensional. I say, George, it's all the above. And so that Exopolitics book that just came out, we need to thank him for. Larry King Live and James Fox and all the people that have appeared in the media have brought this forward. Thank you to the visionaries. And I'd like to play the John Mack clip, please, because he, with Steven Spielberg, is very involved with young children. So can we play John Mack clip that I have for you? Read us.
Unexplained Mysteries, Destination Earth. Something major has also happened in Africa. A unique mass encounter between aliens and school children. One night, thousands of people in Africa saw a meteor. 2 days later, something allegedly touched down outside Ruwa, Zimbabwe.
This object landed with the 3 or 4 things beside it. and then a door opened, and this little man got out who had on a black suit.
At the Ariel Primary School, 62 children came into contact with what they say were alien creatures.
They were very slim, the suit was black, but it was the eyes that was frightening.
A large number of children, all with the same apparent story.
Why would 62 children lie?
Celebrated Harvard professor John Mack interviewed the young eyewitnesses.
It was silver, and the ring around it was red.
Was red. Did light come from the whole thing, or
There are lights around here.
lights along the edge there? How many of the strange beings did you see?
I saw one over here. They had eyes like that, and they were kind of just like looking at us. They were like kind of astonished at what we were. I felt scared.
It felt scary? What was scary about it?
Well, I felt scared because I've never seen such a person like that before.
They experienced very powerful encounters with these beings and were left with the rather disturbing fact that this seems to be what it is, and it seems to have no other psychiatric explanation.
Mack feels the children did not experience a mass delusion, but they believe the aliens had an ominous message.
Fungi, what do you imagine is his reason for visiting Earth?
I think it's about something that's going to happen.
Something that's going to happen.
What I thought was maybe the world's going to end. Maybe they're telling us the world's going to end. I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world and we mustn't get too technologized.
How did that get communicated to you?
I don't really know, but it just popped up in my head.
Pollution.
He never said anything. It's just that the face, just the eyes, they looked horrible.
And the eyes, the horrible look, had that information that you just told me?
Yes.
In Africa, media exposure to aliens or UFOs is limited.
Now, the people in Africa don't have television. They might have a radio, but I can tell you the media don't deal with UFOs there. It's nervous of it. So where would they pick it up? Is it a mass telepathy?
The children maintain a belief in what they saw and felt.
If someone were to say, well, you know, you just have a lively imagination and you made this up, what would you say?
I haven't been influenced by any of my friends. I have seen what I've seen.
Okay. Do you notice his questioning? You know, how was that communicated to you? He, like Hynek, had a way of not leading on the witnesses, of phrasing a question so that maximum information can come out without any kind of subjective judgment. So I really admire people like Barbara Lamb and Mary Rodwell and Leo Sprinkle and those people that follow in the Mac tradition, that do not lead but ask, and do not assume that whatever it is there, because it's scary. He said, how come you thought it was scary? He didn't say, did you see something tremendously scary? In other words, his questioning is very well done. It's very impartial, because we got to know what this is about. We have to know what's happening here, and we've got to pull ourselves out of it, or our own fears out of it. And it's such a hard job. That's why I admire Mary and Leo and Barbara and all the people that deal with the contactee scenario, the abductee scenario, because it takes a lot, and you hold a lot with it. You hold a lot of energy of these people in it. So hopefully with their research, with our research, with the scientific research, someday we'll all come to the table in some major university on this planet, hopefully in the United States, but you never know, and have some kind of real summit on the UFO question where we include everybody that's involved. We thank you to the visionaries like Steven Spielberg. I think I've had some conversations, and you know, I have a lot of friends in the field. that are very idealistic, that I say we belong to the Walter Cronkite generation, and Richard Hoagland is one of them, and I've got to herald him. I have to. And he and I have had conversations about what we expected NASA to be. And we were part of the Kennedy situation, where Kennedy said, we're going to the stars. And we thought, sure, we're going to go and explore the stars. In a couple of years, we'll be on these planets, meeting all these people. I don't think in our hearts, at a very young age, we realized it was military-based and there were other reasons for going to the moon and going to the stars. We idealists have really fallen from the clouds. It's really hard when you belong to that Walter Cronkite generation. I'm older than I look. And I think that I really hope we can get back to that kind of idealism. But who has led us there are people like Gene Roddenberry, people like Arthur C. Clarke, 2001, the beginnings of humanity, the vision of Stanley Kubrick, the visions of the new star child. How often have we heard that word? The idea that children may be the ones to lead us to this reality. I would like to play, if I may, the Spielberg clip, if we can. Now, you'll see this now, but I got it out of Italy. You won't see, I don't think they played this in the United States. This is the Actors Studio, and this is Steven Spielberg talking to a very young person. I think he loves talking to young people.
Give us some advice as young
We need
people who don't often want to listen. What is the importance of
higher.
And lastly, do you believe in aliens?
Do you believe in aliens, she said.
Well,
Audio?
I was taught by my mom and dad that in Judaism, the most important prayer is Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And it was taught to me from childhood that the most important thing I could do as a Jew was to listen. And that wasn't a way for a parent to say, I know more than you, I'm the boss, you shut up, I'll do all the talking. That wasn't that way at all. They meant listen to yourself. Listen to those little whispers that we tend to not want to hear because they're too soft, and we tend to somehow listen to the shout, not the whisper. And so listening carefully is what I was taught all my life. And I'm just saying that when people don't listen, it's not that they don't learn, they just deny themselves tremendous opportunities and glorious choices. They deny themselves this. And it's their own damn fault. I do believe in aliens.
You got it. There has to be some passion. There has to be some intent. I always look at the intention of the people to make films of this kind. Close Encounters changed my life completely. That's how I got involved. Very emotional part in the end. And I don't think it's unrealistic to say that it would be nice to have an exchange with an alien culture, as Francois Truffaut, or supposed to be Jacques Vallée, had at the very end. It was respectful. It was filled with imagination. It was awe-inspiring, even though it was government programmed. I really believe we can do that. I think that we can go for that. I think that is possible if the people want it. It shouldn't be a government kind of thing. But that inspiration comes from some kind of passion for this subject matter, whether it be artificial intelligence, close encounters. Now we've seen Mission to Mars, Brian De Palma. I really recommend you put that in your library, and also Dark Mission, Richard's book, because it is so complex. The whole idea that there has been secrecy in every facet of the space exploration scenario. If you really want to find out, you're going to need to read the documents. You're going to need to read what's going on. Now, one of the things I'm leading to Avatar, but before he did Avatar and the Terminator, he also did The Abyss. And I don't know how many of you people saw the film. Simple underwater bases of these aliens that could have a technology around water. Our Earth, good people, right? Our response to that was to send 2 Navy SEALs to lob a nuclear device to destroy the underwater base. And that film is incredible because one of the scientists, the aquanauts, dismantled the bomb, saved the situation, and therefore what happened was the beings, because of one act of love, because I'm looking to see that really they're looking at our capacity to love. We have a capacity to hate, we have a capacity to destroy, but we have an intense capacity to love. And because of that one act of love, the beings do not send a tsunami to destroy the earth. However, that is James Cameron's brain. That's his mind. From that mind, we have the creation of Pandora, which all of these really intelligent directors are using mythological metaphors. Pandora, when you open Pandora's box, you have the mysteries coming out. When you open Pandora's box the way we did with the nuclear situation at White Sands, you have all kinds of things coming out also that are not so pleasant. You have change in the whole structure. Avatar, the futuristic vision of Avatar is a vision that puts average humans against pantheistic aliens. It's a spiritual surprise of the year for creating an alternative world where the interconnectedness of all beings is celebrated and the natural habitat is revered. We're looking at harmony, unity, and the destruction of what Dr. John Mack calls scientific materialism. Now, we could play there for the next couple of years. We could play there with our children. The fact that we do not interconnect as much, the fact that we are using technology as a substitute for other things. We could play there, but eventually it will have to change because that isn't the human spirit. That isn't where the human spirit is. The human spirit is interconnected and harmonious, not only with its environment, but with its creator. So are things going to change? Absolutely. Do we discuss whether it's good or bad? I don't think we should go there because it's going to happen anyway. I really think that basically the disclosure, and we use that word over and over again, maybe too much, because I think disclosure is happening. It's happened. I've just showed you all the whistleblowers, all the films, all the people that have come forth, all the research that's been done. Disclosure is already done. It doesn't need to come from a government. That disclosure can do one of two things to your reality. You can say, I can't handle it right now because, you know, my house, I'm losing my house, or I have problems in my own reality, financial and so forth, and emotional. And it's okay, because this isn't religion. Or you can open your mind and say, there is going to be a new worldview. There is a new paradigm coming on the horizon. It will happen. I want to be there. I want to be there. In my lifetime, I'd like to be there when we have some kind of not only formal acknowledgement, but formal visitations, because it is exciting. And I know it could be that there's that group that will say, well, you know, it might not be so good. We could be their property and so forth. Well, if we are, first of all, for the things we've been doing from the very beginning, I think that they would have given us an obvious message that we were not important to the universe, like John Mack says, a menace, and therefore dealt with us. No one is dealing with us yet. It's almost like, I've talked to my friend Carol Rosen, who says, Paula, she said, you know, they're very intent on these years. These years are key years. She said, if we don't do something in these next couple of years, they're just going to go home. They're just going to say, forget it, whatever happens to these people, they deserve it, let them fend for themselves. And I really like that thinking, but remember that crabwood conduit closing? Okay, the creation of different worlds. So somebody out there like him, like Cameron, gave us a vision. But thank God it's not just an American vision, because every single country in the world is saying that this is the most seen, the most viewed film ever. If it's the most viewed film ever, it's in the consciousness of the world. It is an incredible film. It is a film that also talks about advances like taking human consciousness and putting it into another body. taking human consciousness and putting it into a body that's not crippled, that can walk, taking human consciousness and putting it into another body perhaps to live forever, and looking at longevity. It has all kinds of philosophical ideas if you wanted to cover this in a classroom. But we have an obligation to cover it because we have an obligation for our youth, for future generations. Walt Disney Productions was approached by the intelligence community to do some kind of disclosure film through its animator, Ward Kimball, who created Jiminy Cricket years ago. Somehow we start, we're going to do it, then we stop, then we start, we're going to do it, then we stop. But you must know that children are ever so important. Certain films tell us that children will show us the way to a more loving world. I'm hoping it's in my generation, but maybe this generation needs to pass away. We're looking for a legacy of the humanity, the blue people, the Na'vi. You know, when I flew into McCarran, though, then you have the blue people, you have those at Cirque du Soleil there, and they're right at you, and I'm going, isn't that interesting? We have blue people here, we have blue people there in this film. We have the idea that we must be childlike to have this kind of contact. Here's all the films of Spielberg. We look at what inspired me, which was a respectful meeting with these populations, and they're not all gray, there's people. I showed you the Clarions. We look at the fact that we have to do this because we either evolve or we're stagnant. We stay in the same position, they go away. Will we evolve is the question. Will we go there? Will it happen in 2010? I'm on the island of Sardinia here with some people looking at this particular archaeological subject, and I believe that this will be the main choice we have. That's a beautiful painting of John Mack done by an Italian contactee, Tony Michelli. And John, I thank you for your inspiration for me and everyone else. And I thank you for your attention. And I thank you for all you've contributed over the years to this marvelous Congress. And let's go ahead to the future. Thank you.